The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to a special March Madness edition of K4Wins. The number 4wins.com. Go to our website. It's absolutely free. You can subscribe, get all kinds of great writings, and of course, all of our plays from Kai Gregory up and left to a corner. He has been a man that's been on both sides of the plays in Las Vegas for years and years and years. Below him is Case Kiefer, executive director, and of course, chief editor of the Las Vegas Sun. Does fantastic work and a handicapper for a living. And right below me is Kip Kiefer. Of course, he's the executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, and he does fantastic work on ABC 3340's The Starting Lineup. We missed you, by the way, yesterday, my friend. I tried to pull in a good show, so that'll air on Saturday mornings between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. And, of course, Case, a big part of that as well. First, how are we doing on our play so far, Kai? And then we're going to rip into it because I am jonesing to get in some hoops. What we got?
Went pretty well. Yesterday we were 5-2.
Yep.
We had Alabama and the over, so not bad. And so year to date, 295, 152, and 4.
That Alabama over was so high that at halftime it was at 91. I'm thinking, hell, and they were just barely over half. I was like, at that pace, I was thinking to myself, am I halfway home and it's not going to go over 175 and a half? And I could not believe it. And of course, it flew over that. And Alabama putting up a 113 spot. Man, when you score 88 points against Alabama and you still lose by 25, something ain't going right. They sink 25 3-pointers. And now, of course, they've got a duck of a different feather, if you will, as my dad would used to say, the Duke Blue Devils. A couple things to think about before we jump in. Favorites so far have won 40 of the 52 ball games, but only 28 and 24 against the spread. Unders 27, 24 and 1 so far, but all games on Thursday posting over the totals. We got Ole Miss, Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, Auburn, Purdue, Houston. Let's go those 4 games first, since those are going off today. Then we'll get into the games going on Saturday with Alabama and Duke and Texas Tech and Florida. Right off the bat, Case, where's the money been moved on the 4 games going off today, tipping off later on this evening?
Yeah, I don't think since we've last talked, there hasn't been huge moves on any of these games. I guess you'd say Houston might be the side taking the most money, which is a little surprising me. I'm a big Houston guy. That they'd be my best outcome to win the tournament. I actually added a Houston bet this week that I also wrote about in the column that I think is already running Las Vegas Sun. I bet LJ Cryer, most outstanding player, 14-1. I think he has all their equity if they win the national championship. Houston's it's like 6-1. I don't think Cryer should be 14-1. I think people just look at the stats and like Uzan and Roberts are just as important. But if you look at crunch time when they need something to happen, they go to Cryer. I think it's now down to 12-1 after some games yesterday. But if you like Houston as much as I do, I still recommend that Cryer bet. Sorry, I always get off on tangents. But yeah, it looks like they've taken the most money today. They're up to 8.5. As much as I love Houston, though, I would not be rushing into lay 8.5 here. In fact, I'm staying disciplined, but I'm actually leaning Purdue. If this gets to 9, I think I will bet a little bit of Purdue. It is a semi-home game in Indianapolis. Houston, we all know, plays slow. They're going to be in a game where there's not a lot of room to separate. And I just think the Boilermakers are kind of underrated. They have just a great offense. They have one of the best offenses in the nation with Kaufman, Wren, Smith, and Lawyer all capable of getting a bucket. So I don't really think Houston's on upset alert, but I do think this will be a little closer game. Kentucky, Tennessee, I made it 4.5. It's basically been 4.5 all week. No movement there. We did see a little early week move on Ole Miss. I guess there's been a little buyback on Michigan State. That's now pretty much 3.5 across the board. And Auburn, Michigan, I'm on Michigan plus 9.5. I bet it at open. I said on the last show. It's probably the least confident bet I'm on. I have a tough time seeing Auburn lose this game, and it's making me feel even more so when all the sports books here you look at. I don't bet off of this stuff. I'm just saying, I'm just sharing the information. But everyone is on Michigan. Michigan is the most popular side of the Sweet 16. The books just can't stop the Michigan money rolling in. I always get a little bit eerie of that public dog, but technically I made a good bet plus 9.5. It's 8.5, but I don't know. I think Auburn wins, but yeah, I guess the popular sides tonight would be Houston, Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky, coin flip. I think there's support both ways in Mississippi State.
And we'll follow up with all of our best bets before the end of the show. We'll go through all of our best bets again. Of course, one of those big matchups, Kentucky, Tennessee. These two teams have already met each other. The only team to knock off Tennessee twice this year. 10.5-point dog one game, 3.5-point dog the other. They went outright. We're talking Kentucky, of course. They also in this 2 games hit over 50% from 3-point land. Tennessee giving up the 4.5, 144. But this defense has been lights out so far in the tournament. Now it's been against a Wofford and the team I told you I saw up at Rupp, UCLA. They made UCLA look plain silly. They were throwing balls to people that weren't on the court. They were throwing to guys on the bench. It was weird. Do you feel a little differently about this matchup now, the third time over, Kai?
No. It's the 186th meeting of the Vols in Kentucky. The last 7, Tony Curre, useless fact, the last 7 meetings, the underdogs won. I saw that.
Wow. That's not so useless now. Come on.
So I just, Tennessee shot poorly both times versus Kentucky. I think the last game they were 3 for 20 or 3 for 21 from threes, just horrible. But it's all about the matchups, and Tennessee matches up poorly with the size of Kentucky. And the guard play of Kentucky is pretty good. If Akpara gets in foul trouble, there's no one to stop Kentucky inside. If I play this at all, I would have to play Kentucky. Even as a Tennessee fan, I'm not going to play it. I'm going to sit back and watch it, or I may put, a biscuit on Kentucky and hope Tennessee wins by 4.
Kip, I was watching that Auburn-Creighton game, and again, to see it in person is just a totally different animal. And Janai Broome just doesn't look right. I saw him yesterday with Seth and the rest of the crew from CBS with his coach. They were doing an interview with him, and I know he's kind of laid back. He always got he kind of has that stoner look, like he's just a really quiet-spoken kind of guy. He's not the kind of guy you think he would get back down the post. He had 6 points 25 minutes into that ball game this past week, and you could just look at his body characteristics. He just didn't look like he was into the game at all. He was kind of looking around, staring around. It was just bizarre to see the way. Maybe it's because it's the first time I've seen him. Maybe he does that every single game. A lot of people say LeBron James plays the same way unless he has to play well. But you got Janai Broome, and here's Pettiford, who goes for 23 the other night, and found out that Auburn's 4-1 whenever Pettiford goes for 20 or more points. So that's important that the Auburn Tigers do that. But what are you seeing from Janai Broome, and what do you think about this Auburn Tiger team giving up 8.5 to a Michigan squad that, quite frankly, is getting no respect?
Yeah, I didn't think Broome played very well, and I wasn't as quite as bombastic as your opinion of him in terms of post game, but he did seem really subdued, and I don't know. That their last couple of games, he hasn't really looked like the dominant force he was earlier in the year. But a lot of times, players like that, you never know what kind of things could be bothering them. They've actually had a decent amount of rest now because coming off the SEC tournament, and they did get knocked out on Saturday, but coming right back and playing with a little bit of a gap, but maybe a little burnout. I don't know. But now they haven't played since, I guess, Saturday or Sunday. It's Friday. So I think you're going to see the real Janai Broome show up, because now I think they're close enough to the Final Four where they can smell it. And he's a primetime player. He's proven commodity. I think you'll see the best of him, and probably the best of Auburn. I've said all year that, Alabama and Auburn and Florida's right there with them. I still think they are, personnel-wise, the 3 most talented teams in the country. And I really think that you're going to see Auburn's best like we saw Alabama's best last night. I heard one of the people on ESPN today going, well, if Alabama plays like that again, they're going to be unbeatable. Well, they're not going to play like that again. They're not going to make 25 threes. It's such an unrealistic way to look at it. Mm-hmm. But I do think Auburn has that kind of game in them too. And I know Michigan has plodded along and gotten by both of their opponents. And, maybe I should be higher on them, but I'm not shy to admit it. And Case knows this and would testify testify to it in court if I was charged with it. I hate the Big Ten. I hate their style of play. I just don't like anything about the league. I think they're a plotting, big man oriented team that has to control the glass, and they may well do that. But this could be a game like Alabama last night where Auburn just busts loose, and I can't endorse Michigan. I like Auburn here.
I think a lot has to do with, obviously, Case, what Golden and Wolf are going to do. They're two big men, and obviously, if Broome can have a field day against those guys, I think it's funny whenever you have a two team with two big guys, because there's plenty of teams with no big guys that all seem to do very, very well. You're playing either small or big. If you're depending on your big guys and they're not doing well, it's going to be a long day. But something tells me, I think you're right, that we have not seen Auburn's best day. Case, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think they kind of got some of the mojo back in the second half of that Creighton game. I mean, the only thing I agree with what Kip said longer term, but the only thing that I think is I strongly disagree with. I mean, Michigan plays extremely fast. They have these two big 7-footers, but they have these two guys that run the floor. If anyone's going to be trying to plot and make it a boring game, it's Auburn. I mean, Michigan's got the second fastest pace in the NCAA tournament. I feel like if it's a boring game, it's going to be because Auburn says, all right, we're more physical. We got the better athletes. Let's beat these guys up. I feel like Michigan's going to be trying to speed it up. It's worked for them to this point. I mean, they're red hot in the postseason, but I kind of, and I do feel like Auburn is a little bit hampered. I think a lot of the Broome thing you were talking about is I mean, the guy's had so many ailments this year. He's just gotten the crap beat out of him time and time again. On what did they play, Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was. I mean, obviously that was only 1 day arrest. I do agree with Kip that I think the bigger arrest means something for Auburn, just with the gauntlet they've gone through in the SEC. So I'd be a little bit more worried about Auburn in the second game this weekend, although I don't think that highly of Michigan State or Ole Miss. So from the beginning of the tournament, I said I was worried about Auburn, but I think they got a great draw, and it sticks with that. To me, I'd be pretty surprised if Auburn doesn't at least get to the Final Four, and then all bets are off from then. We'll see how they are in there, but they should absolutely be there after this weekend.
All right, Kai, we got our Elite Eight getting set up here. Texas Tech and Florida. Again, the Red Raiders. Really, no one talking about this team until just recently, realizing just how good they are, catching 6.5, 156 the over/under against the Florida Gators, a team again that covered the spread their last game, and of course you got Bama and Duke. And it's funny, Kip, because you were sitting there saying, everyone's saying if Bama could play like that again, well, that's the dumbest thing you could say, because they'll never play like that again. They set a record that hadn't been approached in 35 years, and you're doing it against a team, Duke, that plays a little bit better defense than BYU. This should be a really interesting game. Kai, let's talk about not only the rest of the games today, but the 2 games tomorrow, and then give me some of your best bets. Let's start with that Alabama-Duke game coming up. Right now, 7.5 and 173.5.
Well, good, because I thought I was going to be disagreeing with both of the keepers, and apparently I have one on my side in at least one game. But I'll get back. I'll get back to that in a minute, because I love Michigan. I think Auburn might lose tonight. If I was to bet that game, I think I would bet Duke, but I'm just going to bet the over. I don't think Alabama's going to play like that, but everybody says, hey, if they play like that again, yeah, well, if they hit 16 threes instead of 25, then what's going to happen? You know, Duke's got 5 guys that can entertain on defense. They're very good. I do think Duke's inside presence is going to hurt Alabama tomorrow night. But they're playing on the same floor that they just put up 113 points. So it's not like they're going to a different gym. They're going to be familiar with that. No, I don't expect them to put 25 threes. And what did they make? Did they make 10 twos even?
I don't think they had that many.
I mean, so it was crazy. I was watching the game. My wife doesn't watch basketball. I'm sitting there watching the game, flipping, and my youngest is watching, and Leslie's like, "Is this good?" When I was like, "Oh my God, that's the 20th three, the 21st, the 22nd," you know. And I think 21, 22, and 23 came in like 45 seconds, you know, in game time. I was like, "Yeah." And then Sears is going crazy, and I don't think he sent 10 threes in the month of March. And then, you know, to hit those,
they put, just to tell you, they put the ball up 66 times, 51 times are from beyond the arc.
Yeah, and 15 twos. And I think Texas Tech's run is over tomorrow. Y'all know how high I am on Florida. It pains me as a Tennessee fan. I think Florida is going to drub them. I think Arkansas took something out of them. Massive. Everybody's talking about the incredible comeback by Texas Tech. How about the incredible
collapse
by Arkansas that they took in the middle of the floor? And I remember seeing, and I saw it on a tweet, X, whatever you're supposed to call that now. of Calipari when he's being interviewed. I think I think it was the 8-minute timeout, 12-minute timeout, something, and he's all smiles, and he's all like this, and then they show his face when it's tied, and he's like, and I was like, I love this because I hated him as a Kentucky, as a Tennessee fan. So I would go with Florida there, personally, and I think Purdue's in for a wake up tonight. They've played McNeese and what other crap school, and now they're going to go up against a team that plays defense that will bang the crap out of them. I think Purdue really only has 2 guys that they can count on. I know Case listed off like 12, but he probably knows the whole roster by heart of every basketball team, and I don't. So, but I think that they're in for a wake up call. It might be close in the first half until they get good and woken up. But and then the last 2, I'll give you. I love Michigan State. I'm not going to bet against Tom Izzo in March #1. But Michigan, I mean, Ole Miss got 51% from the floor so far in the tournament, 49% from the 3. You think they're going to do that against the top 5 defense in Michigan State? I don't. And then the experience factor. Michigan State with Izzo, and their 20th Sweet 16 is second for Ole Miss. Are they just happy to be here? I don't know. Maybe not. But I think this is one of those also that if this comes out a little bit late and you're watching this, Michigan State, second half, they are sleepy in the first half. They've been very good in the second half. And I agree with Case on Michigan running, and I think they at least keep it. Now, I got it at 10 yesterday, so I think they at least keep it there. Yes, I bought a half a point. But I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan won the game. I think Broom is looking for his NBA career to start, looking for his money. I'm tired of seeing him whine about every call up and down the floor.
Yep.
The last 6 games I've watched Auburn, and we talked about it, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. All they do is complain about refs anymore.
And that's all Bruce Pearl.
All they're doing.
Bruce Pearl, all he talked about was how he said, man, my team, all they did was whine about all the plays and stuff. He says, that's how bad this team wants to win. And I'm like, how bad your team wants to win? They just whine. They don't want to win. They're just complaining. I'm going to jump on top of you real quick, pun intended. I love Michigan State, too. For what it's worth, it's my play of the year. Absolutely love Tom Izzo. And, yeah, I know I'm betting with my heart a little bit here. He's been to 8 Final Fours. This will be his 9th one after he knocks off, of course, Ole Miss and wins the next game. They lead the nation in 3
in 35 years or something. I mean,
Rick Barnes has been to one in 38 years. One in 38 years.
Who have you made more money betting on? Every Chris Beard NCAA tournament team or every Tom Izzo NCAA tournament?
Call me tomorrow morning and congratulate me for Michigan State winning by 8. They lead the nation in 3-point defense. An Ole Miss.
I don't disagree. Beard is a great up-and-coming coach. I totally agree.
Ole Miss was 11-19 from 3-point land. They're not going to shoot that against Michigan State. I absolutely love Michigan State in this game. The Kentucky-Tennessee game, I feel like I've seen them play like 12 times this year. It's really bizarre. I may just leave that alone a little bit because obviously I'm pulling for Tennessee for Kai, but I'm not a big Kentucky fan. I think the Michigan-Auburn game, I agree with you, Kai. I think maybe Michigan's been playing with a chip on their shoulders ever since everyone in the world was going against them in that playing game, that first game of the tournament. I think a lot of people have not had Michigan, but plus 8.5 seems a little too high to me. I also agree with you. I think Houston's going to lay the wood to Purdue later on tonight. All of 4 losses to Houston, by the way, were to NCAA teams. The last 5 games Houston's done, 4 of those teams playing them have not reached their team total. I like the team total of under 61.5 for Purdue later on tonight. I don't think they're going to even sniff 60. It could be 52, 53, 54 points. I love Purdue's total team under 61.5. Duke, Alabama, both teams averaging 94 points a ball game so far in the tournament. It's been unbelievable. Alabama 6-2 against the spread as an underdog this year. 2 of those games, of course, were against the Auburn Tigers. And, of course, they got their biggest underdog. They were a 7.5-point dog to the Auburn Tigers early in the season. Of course, they got the outright win down there. Duke, when they're favored by 8 or points or less, they're only 2-4 against the spread with 3 outright losses. And this is the amazing stat. And I know this is useless Tony Curry stuff, but this is really good. 32 of Duke's 34 wins, they've won by 3 or more possessions. Think about that for a minute. That's insane. 32 of their 34 wins, they won by 3 or more possessions. I
Yeah,
think
but they got 4 NBA guys on the court at all,
Oh, yes,
almost all the
yeah.
time. They have 4 guys that are going to be in the NBA.
With that being said, and some people are like, "There's no way Alabama can shoot like that again." Hell, they can make 17 3-pointers tonight, and on Saturday, and they'd be just fine. They don't have to make 25 of them. I do like them to get inside 7.5. If it goes much higher, then I'm not so sure. And then I like Florida as well against Texas Tech, only because I haven't read much about Texas Tech this year, and the Florida Gators have been kind of a pain in the butt all year long. But I take a minus of 6.5. Kip, what you got, brother?
Alabama had a historic game last night, scored 113. Well, Duke's game wasn't historic against Arizona, but look how many they scored, 100, just 13 less. This is not like a impotent team, and Alabama's going to come back to earth. They're not going to shoot at that level, jumping ahead to Saturday. But I just, a team like Alabama coming off that sensational performance, being a 6.5-point dog, is really probably unprecedented. You would think people would be jumping on Alabama like crazy, but Duke is just that good. And I'm rooting for the Tide. My youngest son was an Alabama graduate, so we have a lot of Alabama presence. We went to the Final Four last year. Attended that in Phoenix. So my heart's with Alabama, but I just, Duke is just a unbelievable machine. And this might sound ridiculous, but down the stretch in that game, Arizona, I guess by necessity, kept fouling Kneckel. They weren't fouling Cooper Flagg. Kneckel went to the line. I think he made 12 straight free throws down the stretch, and it never touched iron. I have never seen a guy so good at the line. He shoots 93%. I challenge that. I want to see the 6 or 7 this year that he's missed. This guy's ridiculous. So anyway, with all that said, that's kind of my bet of the weekend. I don't like coughing up that many points, and I still think it will come down a little bit. But Duke has just impressed me no end with how precision their game is. As far as tonight's game, Kai makes a good point. Tennessee doesn't appear to match up great with Kentucky, but they're a better basketball team. They're a more accomplished team. They're a more polished unit as well. And I just don't think the better team's going to lose. Matchup or oddities or aside, I don't think they're going to lose a third time to a team that they have better personnel than. And I know Pope's done a nice job, but Barnes has been dancing a long time, and I just think Tennessee finds a way. Maybe they don't cover the 4.5. But I still think Tennessee, at the end of the day, wins that game because they're a better team than Kentucky, and they're right there at the top of the mountain. So they've got everything to gain here. And I hear you guys about Michigan State and Tom Izzo. I'm an SEC homer. There's no question about it. But Ole Miss is playing phenomenally well, and for that line to be that tight is indicative of some pretty smart money going on the Rebels. And I don't know how much of the Michigan State is this and Michigan State is that is based on this current team. Maybe you guys are guilty of and people supporting Michigan State of the same thing that I fall into the trap all the time, is depending on historical precedent more than actually what's in uniform today. So I'm not going to be shocked. I wouldn't touch this game with a 100-foot pole, but I'm not going to be shocked if Ole Miss's athleticism and just the swagger they're playing with. I knew this was a good team all year. They had a few lulls, but when they gut checked and beat Tennessee late in the year in their place, this team showed me some real grit, and I just like what Beard has created there. I think they're kind of like Arkansas, a team that's playing at their very highest efficiency level. And last night's Arkansas collapse was pathetic, but we almost had 3 teams through to the Elite Eight. So I don't know. I tend to just say I'm staying away from that game, and I'm not going to be surprised what happens there.
Kip, I like.
Hey Tony,
yeah.
I did want to say that they are almost like Arkansas because they're almost out of the tournament also.
Yeah, could
and
be.
we'll be there. No, I love when we actually disagree on our show versus the agreements, because I just like. I mean, I can't tell you, and for those listening, how many times y'all have talked me out of bad bets. You know, even when I said I loved it and all that, Case has talked me out of 25 just horrendous bets with, just telling me the line he made it. And I was like, wow, I'm way off. So, I mean, it's great. And then Cuckoo made me tons of money and saved me tons of money in hockey, because he'd give me one side and I was thinking the other. So, Tony, I just bet against you.
Hey, listen, as long as you know which way to go with me, you're good to go. And I got to tell you something, not only did you play that Michigan State game, but I love the fact that you brought up a great point too. This has been a slodgy team in the first half, if that's a word. That's the only thing that scares me, is if they get down by 10 against Ole Miss and they spook themselves. And I don't think they're going to do that, because they have way too much experience. There's 3 veteran guys and they're starting 5. And again, you got a guy that's gone to 8 Final Fours, Case, 8 Final Fours in 89 years of coaching. He's been to 173 Sweet 16s. This guy's made the big dance every year since 1903. Tom Izzo is the coach.
I think they win the national championship right for UCLA's 7-year winning streak.
So 1972 it was, as a matter of fact. Case, give me some of your plays you like, and then we can go around the horn if you want to talk some baseball. We're doing really well in baseball right off the bat in the opening season. I love me some baseball. What you got?
Well, I didn't do great on baseball or college basketball yesterday. It was funny. I probably look like I have very strong opinions today and feel strong about these games. I don't at all. I felt better about yesterday's games, and I did not do well at all today. Like I said, the only bet I have is that Michigan plus 9.5, and I don't really love it. You just kind of did a pet peeve of mine. The Izzo worship is just so overboard to me. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's great. Guess what? He has a losing against the spread record in the NCAA tournament. So when I hear someone say, just bet on Izzo in March, I'm like, okay, great. Call me, bet on Izzo in March. I'd be up money right now. And I just don't understand. The guy lost the last time he's in the Sweet 16, the only time in the last 5 years. They got beat by a Kansas State team with a bunch of guys working at Costco right now. He lost to Middle Tennessee recently. Houston, meanwhile, their best player goes down. They lose by 1 point to Duke a year ago. They lose to national champion Baylor. And everyone's, Houston, Kelvin Sampson, chokers. Meanwhile, Tom Izzo has a lifetime pass because he's been to a few Final Fours and won 1 national championship. I just don't know. I'd like to get on this committee of who decides who's a legend and beyond reproach and who's a choker. It's just, it's baffling to me. All that being said, I made this game 3. I don't have a bet on it. Clearly, my gut tells me Ole Miss. I think I already said that, but this can't really be like one Kai's talking about, where I talked him out of once. My numbers say one thing. My numbers say Michigan State should win, but I just don't think this team is that great.
Hey, Case, when you go to my account with my man, there's this thing called a dash, and it stands for minus, and it's before the number. It's been like that. It's been like that in my account for about 2 weeks now. So I put my hands up, man. I'm always going to listen to you first. I don't have many games of the year, and in a lot of ways, like I said, maybe you do just want to run the other way and buy the 3.5.
It's just weird. Again, I'm kind of in the sports talk radio here of just trying to knock Michigan State down. It says I really can't talk you out of it. It's not like I feel super strongly about this game. I actually feel better about the 2 Saturday games. And it sounds like, once again, in this, I'm going to make no friends here. But I guess you can't say I don't practice what I preach. I know a couple times over the year or whatever we've been doing this show, Tony, you've asked me about like how high on money lines I will bet. And I'd say I'll bet any money line if there's value, and it's going to hurt, but I put my money where my mouth is in this game. Last night, after we recorded the starting lineup with Kip, I got off, and Duke money was pouring in. They went up to a 6 point. I think they're like 7 now, some places, but went up to a 6 point favorite. And one of those money lines didn't move. It was still minus 250, which was just dead wrong. And I loaded up and bet Duke minus 250 on the money line. I mean, you don't have to know much math to know that money line doesn't match the point spread. I think people that are betting Alabama are probably going to just take them to win outright. So I think that's depressing.
Real quick, have you seen, and I saw another bet earlier today too, Duke minus 195 to make the Final Four. Have you seen that line?
Well, yeah, that actually kind of plays into what I'm doing. That sounds about right. I honestly thought Wisconsin on a great day would be the only team in this region that could beat Duke. Once Wisconsin went down, I was like, I want to bet Duke to win the region. I looked everywhere I could, and I saw at the time it was about like minus 150. And I don't want to get too bogged down in the math, but I was like, that's just too high for a future. What would be better if you play all the money lines and roll over the winning? So I've been playing their money line every game. That's part of the reason why I still stuck to my guns and went with the minus 250. It's still minus 280. I'm just not in a hurry to lay a huge number with Duke because, again, I mean, I don't think Alabama's hitting 25 threes again, a game again. I agree with you guys on that. But it's also like a classic case of the gambler's fallacy to say, oh, they shot so well from three this game, they can't shoot well from three the next game. I mean, they could absolutely hit 50% of their threes again. And so they do have a path to win. But I think Duke, I think really highly of Duke. I mean, they're off the charts analytically, and I just thought minus 250 is not high enough. The best I see now is minus 280. I honestly think if you have the stomach for it, if you're just doing this for fun and want a good analytical bet, like minus 280 is still fine to me too. Maybe if you're a money line parlay guy, throw that into a money line parlay. So that's how I bet that game. And I'm not super confident in this, but going into the tournament, there was a matchup I absolutely loved. And I only fill out one. I'm a one bracket guy, but it's the bracket I had. I just love the matchup for Texas Tech against Florida. Texas Tech has looked not good at all. They have not played well the last 3 games, but I'm a guy that's always going to rely on my priors, and I couldn't believe this got out to 7. And Florida looked amazing last night. They kind of looked like they were back in their bag, but I really think Maryland kind of wilted. You saw them start to pull away, get up like 10 in the second half, and Maryland got that flagrant foul. They started turning on each other, weren't boxing out. Texas Tech did the exact opposite against Arkansas. I feel like they're going to be harder to put away, and we talked about this on the starting lineup. They're the flip side of Alabama. They're a great 3-point shooting team. I think like 4th in the nation, maybe coming 4th in the tournament, coming into the tournament, something like that. And they have shot just terribly. They're like 20% for the tournament. If you know, usually you're going to see that over time. Doesn't necessarily mean in one game you're going to see that regress to the mean. So I think they could shoot a little bit better. I only made this 5. I have a Texas Tech region future at 6-1, so I didn't want to bet it again. But when I saw it touch 7 this morning, I couldn't help myself. So I'm on Texas Tech plus 7. I know Florida's top level is amazing, but I think really, really highly of the Red Raiders. I think it's kind of amazing they've gotten this far with just how terribly they've played. I mean, they have not played well at all compared to what they did during the season. So I feel a little bit better about Saturday's games. I know it's kind of a cop-out, but I think Duke on the money line, and I took the points with Texas Tech.
Don't forget Texas Tech beat Houston at Houston this year. Everybody's so high on Houston. Their one home loss was against Texas Tech Red Raiders.
It's unbelievable. Great defense, great three-pointing machine. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait. And, of course, we'll do this show again in just about a week here as we get ready for a Final Four. We're going to blow out the doors. Make sure you go to K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com, free site. Check us out. You can subscribe to our site, K4Wins.com. And if you like hitting 67, 68% of your bets and you want to go home with some money at the end of the week, go to K4Wins.com. That's all I got to say. Go knock yourself out and don't listen to anybody else. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have yourself a super weekend.
We'll do it.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.